The date is Monday, 9th June 2025, and we are live from the Semabox Studios right here in Nairobi. The social newsroom is where we're going to be talking about the Finance Bill 2025, and the topic today is Mahesabu Kali Kali. My name is Kate Shira. Thank you so much for everyone who's joining us at home, whether you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube. We are going to be live for the next couple of hours, delving deep on what to expect with the budget to be read this 2025, and of course what we prospect as a people. Join in the conversation and put in the hashtag, the social newsroom, or TSNR. And of course, join in the conversation with us here. We have a great panel that is joining us, and of course, an audience who is with us here today. We're going to be delving into that topic. Now, the budget 2025 will be read later this week. And as we all know, it's being read against the backdrop of an economy that is between a rock and a hard place. Now, the people of Kenya, whose trust has been broken, was broken by the 2024 Finance Bill, was broken also by some of the events that followed the Finance Bill 2024. We're talking about protests and the killing of over 100 young Kenyans. And the issues are still largely the same. There's a debt crisis that we are witnessing in our country, and a need for the revenue to manage this very debt that exists. Now, I will remind you that 61% of Kenya's budget is going directly to the payment of debt. That is why our topic today is very, very important. So let's just jump into the introductions today with my panel. I'll begin on my left. Please introduce yourself to our amazing audience.
Thank you. My name is Gladys Mongare, and I work with the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. My name is Veronica Ndegwa. I work with the Institute of Public Finance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronica.
Thank you, and hello everybody who is watching us. Or do I say hello, cousins? My name is Wanja Maina. I have founded an organization called the Hummingbird Grassroots Center, and I am a member of the Okwa Uchumi campaign.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Kenneth Okwaro. I work with ASEPIS. We are a public policy think tank. Tunajaribu kuchambua hiyo numbers put out there credible evidence of public finance so that young people like the ones in this audience and everyone else can make better sense of budget and public policies.
Thank you so much. That is our able panel today. And our audience is joining us today. These are people who had so much vigor, quickly RSVP'd to join this conversation of Mahesabu Kali Kali, and that is why we are excited. My name is Kate Rira. I understand I didn't tell you that. I think I was excited about being one of your cousins, but we have to get into the numbers because that's what we're into today. The key budget components. Let's just take a very let's take a look at this. So the total expenditure that we're expecting to have this year is 4.3 trillion Kenyan shillings. Revenue projections, we're talking about 3.3 trillion. So we're expecting 2.75 trillion from taxes. Development expenditure projected to increase by just 34.2% to 804.7 billion. The recurrent expenditure existing already, what we're expecting project from the budget 2025 is an increase by 8.9%. So that is 3.1 trillion. Transfers to counties and governments. We're talking about 474.9 billion Kenya shillings. Contingency fund has been set at 2 billion shillings. And then we have debt servicing obligations. It's projected to consume around 1.37 trillion Kenya shillings. Let's begin. What's your impression of the 2025 budget and also the Finance Bill 2025? Let's just with you.
Right. So the way I look at it, the budget for this year is we're kind of doing what we did last year. right. I think this one is working now. I'm saying I'm here, kind of miffed that we did not learn some of the lessons from last year. In fact, we were here at Baraza Media Lab around this time last year, indicating that the problem we have as a country with the budget is essentially an expenditure one and not a revenue mobilization one, which is what we make a lot of noise about at this point. When you look at the budget, to answer your question, it looks like nothing has changed. It's perhaps just about 60 billion that has been reduced. That means Punda Nile, the one that was trying to carry that big load last year, is going to try to carry it this year. They will try and move things around here, remove 1% here, remove something, but the overall load is the same. There will be a little bit of PR here and there and public engagements, but nothing has changed for me.
Punda ni ile, that's a statement from Mukwara. I'd like to hear what your opinion is, especially in your first impression of the 2025 budget and also the finance bill.
Thank you so much, Kate, and good evening to our viewers.
I think let's keep our mics on all throughout. Don't turn it off so that we're going to be able to hear you.
It's okay.
Sure, yes.
We should do like the village uncles who do like this.
You're good. You're good.
I think I'll just start by saying that for me to give the good impression of these budget estimates and the 2025-2026 finance bill, I think it's important for us to also talk about the context in which we are coming from.
Okay.
We are coming from a financial year, this one that has ended, that there were a lot of issues around the finance bill and the taxation. And there was also the 2023 one, where we had a lot of issues, and you remember there was even a court situation. So the 2025, even though now we are starting a new financial year, the context is very important. My initial impression is, wameficha vitu na huko ndani ndani, lakini juu it is made to look innocent, cute. But for those of us now who are worried about the future of our country, we are saying, even though you are hiding when it comes to tax, we want to see the estimates. We want to see why you want to spend a lot of money on this and not a lot of money on this, especially provision of public goods. It might be remembered that, you know, the way we say you are giving Peter and you are taking away from Paul.
Yes.
More or less like, sita wa tax sana, and you know now we have had a head of state who is even apologizing to us by telling us, if I have wronged you. So I think now he's saying, if I hurt you with the taxes last time, see, sorry, Basi, this time I'm coming nicely. However,
Okay.
However, there are some ... and particularly issues around public goods. So it looks innocent on the surface, but there are some ...
There are some hidden taxes. There are some hidden clauses that Kenyans are yet to understand. Thank you for that. What is your general view of the budget 2025 and also the finance bill?
Okay, thank you.
It's on.
Okay. All right. I think I agree. Nothing significant has changed. But maybe the starting point is that we saw an increase. Last year we started at around 3.9, went down slightly to 3.8. And then we have had 2 supplementary budgets since then. So maybe the other question is, which numbers are we comparing this year's budget with, now that we've been talking about a supplementary budget 3, when the last month of budget implementation. So I would say, and maybe the other thing is, we were promised zero-based budgeting last year. And maybe a clarification, zero-based budgeting doesn't necessarily mean a budget won't increase, but then any allocation will be justified. We started looking at the budget numbers since last year, from when the government released the budget review and outlook paper, came to the sector working group reports, came to the budget policy statement, looking for these justifications. We are giving the Ministry of Health around 136 billion, but what is the justification of this allocation? So we're still waiting to see, and from the review of the few budget documents I mentioned, the justifications are still not there.
Okay, thank you for that. Your just overview of Finance Bill 2025 and the budget.
From my point of view, I think the finance bill of 2025 is not much different from the finance bill of last year. In that, for me, it is a bill that is pro the ruling elite.
Pro?
The ruling elite. And it seeks to protect the interest of the political class more. And it doesn't have the interest of the common mwananchi at heart. When looking at the budget in terms of the allocations, we have seen that this year, the kind of allocations that have been done to the Office of the President, State House, the Minister of Affairs, vis-a-vis the allocation to public service delivery like health, critical areas like the education also, and even social protection. It tells you that we are dealing with a government that really doesn't care about what you people say, because these are some of the issues that we raised last year during the finance bill of 2024. But there is, my colleague has said, there's a lot of PR in the budget, so, or rather even in the finance bill. And even when you hear the Treasury and the other people speaking about the bill and the finance and the budget, they are trying to tell you that we are pro Mwananchi, we are pro Mama Boga, but ideally it is the opposite. So for me, I think even right now it is even worse, because coming from where we are coming last year, with the kind of issues that Kenyans raised, this year they should have been a little bit more sensitive and say, I think last year what we saw was not right, and we need to listen to what the common man is saying. But you see, for them, they really don't care. And that's why you see they're also increasing allocation to the police. These are the people who have been accused of police brutality. Yeah, so we are seeing a government that is very keen on endearing the police, making sure that they're closer to them so that they can continue using them the way they want.
Thank you for highlighting that. Yeah. And you've just highlighted the police, and I've just remembered it would be, an injustice for me to be quiet and to be silent. To first note, thank you, everyone in the audience and everyone who's joining us today for joining this topic. Lately, there has been a risk of speaking out. We have seen it with the several arrests that have been happening from 2nd of May to 2nd of June. We're talking about so many arrests like Rose Njeri Thuguru. We're talking about Nicholas Gishuke, Brian Adagala, who were part of the team, or rather were part of the team who were being charged with an accusation against the BBC documentary. Others like Webster Ochora, who's also being charged for publishing a biography. And sadly, Albert Ojwang, who's lost his life. So, of course, we're saying justice for Albert Ojwang. That's a message from us. But I want to say thank you so much for being courageous enough to join a conversation with the political weather that we have today. Of course, we urge you to, put your VPN wherever you're going to be if you're leaving here today. But thank you so much for joining us and being that courageous to speak out. My heart goes out to the family of Albert Ojwang, and of course to all Kenyans who are doing what they need to do to speak out for this. Now let's get back into our topic, because today is all about Mahesabu Kalikali. And as you heard, Punda anabeba mzigo bado, there are hidden keys, there are hidden clauses. There's so many perspectives of this Finance Bill 2025 and the budget that are missing out, and we are not going to leave any stone unturned. So let's begin with the issue of debt, because that's usually our biggest problem. There's been a very long conversation about Kenya's sovereign debt. In fact, there are several initiatives to figure out what is actually owed by Kenya. How much do we owe? Deni yetu inakaa vipi? But there's also talk about the debt never even landing in Kenya in the first place. I don't know if it misses up by the port or by JKI. I don't know where the debt disappears to. But somehow it has vanished between the lender and the consolidated fund. How are we going to be able to address this? And do you feel like the Finance Bill 2025 is going to be able to address the lending issue? Because I can see one of the debt servicing obligations has gone to 1.37 trillion. How are we going to be able to sort this actual lending issue and debt that we have? Wanja, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kate. I think for me, when you talk about issues of debt, it saddens me. It really saddens me. And this is why I'm sad. when you talk about the money that we owe, na uko hivyo the money that we owe, some of us in a simplistic way we say, when you get a debt, do you use it to consume and to eat, or you use it for development? Because ideally, if we take Kenya, let's assume Kenya is you are Kenya, and you've gone to your bank to take a loan, maybe to do a certain development project. Assuming you are starting a business, ideally that business should do well so that it can help you to repay the debt. So the question with Kenya is how every other time we have a lot of debt, but people don't feel the impact of that foreign money in the welfare of the Kenyans. I think the second thing really is a debt register. No one knows exactly how much money we owe. I remember around the time when the Gen Zs were doing their protests, I think I've been accused of calling it the Gen Z revolution. They say, no, it's not a revolution. It didn't achieve much. So sometimes I ask people, does a revolution stop being a revolution if it doesn't achieve an expected outcome? Those are just my thinking. But then again, when we talk about the issue of debt, I struggle not to talk about issues around our sovereignty, issues around the IMFs, the World Banks, and the foreigners who have a lot of conditions to us Africans, third world countries, who borrow money from them. It would interest you to know that we have had a journey with this debt. Once upon a time, for those whose parents were working for government, walikuwa wana work hivyo, I'm sure there was an uncle of yours ulisikia, alipewa golden handshake. Mulikuwa mnasikia? All of them started a business for matatus and it failed for some reason.
But that was for retrenchment mostly.
But you see, the reason why it was done, it is because the IMF had told the government, sasa nyinyi mko na mashida sana. Part of the structural adjustment programs ni kuanza kutoa watu kwa workforce. Mwapea aka package, mwapea milioni 2 watoke kwa workforce because your wage bill is so bloated. It is connected to debt. It is connected to the IMFs of this world and the kind of conditionalities they tell people. By the way, it might interest you to know that these things are so interconnected that even social sectors, for example, in this finance bill, budget yenye tuko nayo, 600 million imekatiwa kwa feeding program. For those of us who live na huko mashinani, kuna watoto wanenanga shule juu ya chakula. Yes. You when you're motivated to do zozoko atakupeleka Harvard, KU, au hata kwao kwa mashinani hata hawajaisikia mtu ameenda university, beshte hao anakuanga mwizi akifika teenager ama anapata mimba. So food is the only motivation. Now, Kate, let me give you an example and why I have said for us to talk about debt, we must talk about these foreign institutions. Now, what they do, part of the conditionalities, kama hizo structural adjustment program, they also say, you tax people, tax bases, wachana social sectors. Basically, they are saying, they are telling you, in other words, kwa nini uliza watoto na uwezi kuwasomesha? So pesa inakatwa kwa free primary education, like in this budget estimates. Wewe uliza watoto na uwezi kuwapea chakula, wanakata pesa kwa 600 million kwa feeding program. What can 600 million do to children? 50,000 children in Kenya can eat a meal a day kwa shule, meal na porridge, for the rest of the year, 50,000 children. Now, for those of us who know that there are poor people in this country, there are children who are motivated by food. Otherwise, kwa hakuna chakula, watakuwa chokora. So, basically, we can now see how itaanza kumove. Hawataenda shule, social vices, watakuwa wezi, watapata mimba wakiwa teenagers. What am I saying? For me, for us to talk about the debt that we owe, how watu wanauko ma foreign debt, I'm sure the experts like Veronica will tell us about the local debt. Mimi naweza sema, we must then start asking ourselves, na wazungu tunadealingi nao na IMF na hizi conditions zao, what does it mean? Kwa nini wanatupeanga na condition more harsh, wanasema political risk na wapeangi hao watu wengine? So those are the issues.
We could get into, those kind of social issues, but I think it is important for Gladys, because you work with human rights. The effect of debt, which we're seeing around, we're talking about 1.37 trillion has been set to pay for this debt. How it aligns with human dignity and human rights. If you could explain it for me, because this is where you actually sit.
Yeah, so currently as we are, I think going forward, the current debt statistic that we have is that for every 100 shillings that is collected in this country, 60 shillings is going to settle the debt. So you only remain with 40 shillings. So that 40 shilling means is what you're going to distribute to offer critical services like health, education, and all that. That explains why currently the university funding model has been changed, so that now parents are forced to dig deeper for their children to go to the university. We also saw, I think, a week ago, the CS saying that even the free primary education will no longer be free. Then we need to ask ourselves how many people as we sit are able to afford paying school fees from primary level. I would even say from nursery, ECD level, all the way to, I would say, maybe primary. So we are saying that the current debt, and unfortunately it continues to accrue, is going to be a big problem in terms of service delivery. And who suffers the most? Definitely are the poor, because majority of Kenyans are not able to afford private facilities. When you talk of health, when you talk of education as well, services like water, there are places where people are not even able to afford water. Accessibility to water is also a problem. So in a way, basic human rights like access to education, access to food and security, access to shelter is going to be a challenge as well. We're seeing a government that is saying that we need to have austerity measures, but they continue borrowing. So what is really depressing to me is, first of all, as Kenyans, we do not even understand what are the conditions that are attached to these loans. In these loans, are we able to say that this certain loan was borrowed for ABCD? Are we able to see the ABCD? So number one, people are borrowing money in the name of Kenya, but that money is ending up into people's pockets. And that means that majority of Kenyans will not be able to enjoy being a Kenyan, because a government that is not able to provide key basic rights like health. Right now, I saw the other day they were saying that for you to be able to access SHA, you have to pay per year annually. So even the monthly contributions definitely are going to cease. So for you to be able to access services through SHA, they were saying that you'll have to be now paying the annual subscription. How many people are able to afford that? Because even the monthly one, majority of Kenyans are not able to afford. So these debts definitely is a big crisis, I would say, and many people are going to be impacted, and we are going to see the poor are getting poorer, while the rich are getting richer, and at some point I think even the middle class is going to exit. Like, we're not going to have the middle class going forward.
I truly agree with that, because a lot of people have been projecting that the gap between middle class and lower middle class will continue being higher, and also top class will go even higher. So we'll seriously have a big difference. Before I get into the actual numbers, I want to ask you something. The 1.37 trillion that has been set for the Finance Bill 2025 to pay for debt, don't you believe it's a good step? Because once we're paying off our debt, we're actually able to put back that 40 shillings into more, profitable and sustainable things for us. What do you think about the 1.37 that has been set aside, especially to pay this debt 2025?
Well, I don't. Okay. Okay. I think we don't even have a choice. Ukishakuuliza pesa ikiingia kwa pesa yako, what happens? It goes out fast.
Yes.
So there's debts that we've taken over 10 years. Talk over 2013, 2014, and them. They said they're going to spend it in whatever ways. It did not end up into our economy. Yeah. So it's a problem that we have right now. Yeah. So it's neither good nor bad. They're going to pay.
We have to pay.
Yes. The Constitution says that when we collect revenue, the first charge in, I think, the consolidated fund where that money goes, the first thing is what? Paying our debt. So, yes or no, we will have to settle whatever debt that we've got. But I've enjoyed the conversation, I think last week and the previous week, the guys who went to court, Tata, who are challenging how much debt is recorded as what we owe legally. Because watu wengi wanashangaa, every year we are saying, because it's for a decade. This is the date you get. So that kind of a conversation is what, for me, I think a lot of us should follow, because there is debt that a lot of us think was either taken up on our behalf illegally or it's not open. That conversation about what you said, that we really need to follow what's going on in the courts, what we can do about it. But for me, it's a more forward-looking question on debt. One of the things that increases our debt is what we call the fiscal deficit.
Yes.
Once we say the many things that we want to do, when guys are going to State House nowadays and they are being told we're higher up, everyone, we've gone back to the Moi regime, where guys used to go and say, Baba to Jengea, Baba to for us.
To go make a plea first.
Essentially, yeah. Once we've got a budget process where we are saying there's public participation and all that. When our budgeting process is like that, it's a hazard or it's...
Okay, this is better? Yeah. When our budget process is like that, what it means is that we are loading up expenditures that perhaps we shouldn't have. So you talked about those many young men and women who died last year because we were protesting the way our finances are being run by the government. Yes. You would have expected that this year there was a drastic change in, for instance, what government is saying they want to spend. Yeah? Uko na nyumba where you have debt and the debt is squeezing you. But you're there looking for how to paint the house or to change toilet paper and all those things, which are not necessarily essential things, but those are the things that drive up what I'm calling what? The fiscal deficit. That then government says it settles through debt. So for me, I want us to look at this forward-looking. Okay. We complained last year, we rioted, government killed our young people. Looking forward, this conversation shouldn't begin in June. Because in June, we are starting a conversation when it's too late. Because now we are talking about how to carry the burden.
When should we start this conversation?
February, you remember when Veronica was talking about the budget policy statement and the outlook that is done on the way we spent money last year.
Yes.
Let us look at what government is saying they're going to spend the year forward before we even come to talking about the finance bill. Okay. Because that's where they load up all those things.
We might get very, touchy about it, but I really want us to stick to the issue of debt. And one of the things we need to understand, as much as we're moving forward, we really need to know the real numbers. Because one, we've said that the numbers come from IMF or World Bank, all these people trying to give us debt, but the numbers we have on the ground are different. Veronica, if you could kindly break down some of the numbers that are true, the true debt numbers that exist. Because what we know as Kenyans and what we see on paper are two different things.
Given that I'm not part of government, I may not give you what has not been published, but the two key institutions that publish debt numbers are the Central Bank of Kenya and the National Treasury under the Public Debt Management Office. And the numbers we have now are, as of March, published numbers, and our debt stood at around 11.4 trillion. In the past, we have had more or less 50% domestic and 50% external debt, but right now the domestic debt is higher than external debt. I think the numbers for last week through the CBK's weekly bulletin were around 6.1 trillion. So that is domestic debt. And I think touching on some of the issues they have talked about and whether these are actual numbers, from the simple economics that we were taught, a country cannot be able to reduce its debt stock until it's in a surplus position. But Kenya, I think the last time we were in a surplus is early 2000s, and it was 1 year. Then since then, for more than 25 years, we have been running on a deficit. To make it easy, a deficit is new debt. So I said our numbers as of March was around 11.4, and because we know that revenues are underperforming, we are likely to have a higher than targeted fiscal deficit. So assuming we close the year at around 11.6 trillion in terms of debt, an assumption, next year, the coming financial year, our fiscal deficit is at 876. So add 876 billion to the 11.6 trillion. So next year we'll be talking about 12.2 trillion. So that is the impact of fiscal deficit. And as Okoro said, our problem is on the spending side. Of course, revenues have slowed down in terms of growth, but as far as you're working with a deficit, our debt will keep on growing. And the numbers you're giving, let me give some numbers from the program-based budget. The total debt service, what is projected under the consolidated fund service, is around 1.9 trillion. So this is both interest and principal payments. Out of that, 1.1 trillion, I'm getting some reactions from behind me. These are not my numbers, they are Kenya's numbers. So out of this 1.1 trillion is to interest payments, meaning we are not going to touch on principal debt. The 11.4 I talked about won't reduce after we have spent 1.1 trillion. And normally what happens, because I said we cannot reduce our debt until our revenues are above our expenditures, what will happen is for the remaining around 800 billion, we'll be borrowing other debt to repay. But it's not a harmless, it's not an issue of borrowing from Kamau and paying Onyango, no. The moment you start borrowing to repay debt, the creditors see you as a risky borrower. So that will come back to haunt us through interest payments that we must honor. Okoro said debt payments are a fast charge in our consolidated fund service. So even before we think of paying the health workers that have been striking for a while, we have to have paid public debt. So the problem is now then the continuous accumulation of fiscal deficits, and it becomes harder and harder because now you keep borrowing riskier and more costly debt. Someone mentioned something about domestic debt, and I think we need to pay particular attention to domestic debt. One, we call it domestic debt, but the right time for it should be commercial debt because of the rates we borrow at. Towards the end of last year, we were borrowing above 15%. So even if you annualize that rate, it will come to around 1.5% per month. So you're expected to pay, you borrow today, and then in 3 months, you're expected to pay back your creditor at an interest rate of around 1.5%. The problem then again with domestic debt, the moment the government is borrowing at 15% and the private sector knows the government is a riskless borrower, me and you who want credit from the banking sector will borrow at a much higher rate because we are riskier. We are going to invest somewhere and you're not guaranteed of returns. So the interest goes up. So the impact is not just on the government expenditure, it's even with the broader private sector. And CBK data I mentioned, they usually do the monetary statistics or how credit has been extended to both the government and the private sector. Growth in credit to the public sector has continuously grown, but for the past 1 year or so, credit to the private sector has been declining. In April, the growth was just 0.2% compared to around 15% that was being recorded last year. So it's meaning the government, we call it crowding out, meaning that the government is taking most of the credit available locally and the little is left to the private sector. Maybe the last number in terms of this survey usually done by the Stanbic Bank. For a long time, the private sector has been expanding, but the most recent data for the month of May show that our credit sector is shrinking. And it's partly linked to borrowing, higher cost borrowing, which has also been influenced by government borrowing.
You've mentioned that the government is a riskless borrower.
I wanted to connect something with what she said about IMF and the World Bank. Yes. I hope it's still working. We can sit and talk about how the IMF and the World Bank, the issues about sovereignty and all that. But the IMF doesn't come here before we call them. They're called morticians or what they are. They come when there's already a problem. Sisi ndio tunaenda kuambia we have a problem with the way we have been managing our economy and public finances. Tusaidie. The problem with them, they are not good Samaritans. They come when they've lined up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that you must do. Now those things, ndio zilitupeleka last year. Because they are saying increase VAT by what, ongeza hapa, toa hapa. Now you feel like they are infringing in the way our economy is being run. But realistically, it's us and our government who have caused it. There's a time when in Greece there was trouble around, 2011 or 2012 there, because they were protesting IMF policy. But IMF went to save that economy because the people who are managing it in their country had already messed up. It's the same problem we've got here. We can face the IMF and tell them that the guys who are managing our economy are not doing the right thing, so stop listening to them too much. But we've also got a role as citizens to face our government, especially now, about the things that they do that will call IMF here again.
Of course, we have to stand in, and I have to congratulate Kenyans and applaud Kenyans because I think we have done it. Then the amount of emails and letters we have sent to the IMF and the World Bank are not few. We even clogging the systems. Kenyans are ones who stand in line to fight for their own country, even discouraging the banks to participate in giving us any money. But I want to take it to the audience now. This administration came in with the theme that they are a bottom-up government. And I don't know if we have been able to experience this. They implied that they are focused on, a bottom of the pyramid. So let's just take a poll around the room. And also remember online, you can tell us what you think on the social newsroom. The hashtag is TSNR. Please put in the hashtag and tell us what you think. How do you feel about the budget, this budget and the previous budget? Is it making the lives of the people at the bottom of the pyramid better? Is it actually for bottom up or not? Please, if you're in the crowd, put your hand up and we'll send a microphone to you to tell us if you feel like the budget is actually bottom up or not. I think we can start right here with McKenna.
Thank you. Okay. I think at a point, we didn't understand the meaning of bottom up. Maybe the bottom was those in bottom. That they should continue staying bottom and the up to maintain their status. Because I believe we are not addressing the real issues here for Kenyans. The real issues for Kenyans every day, it is education, health, infrastructure, and also even the trade systems where they are working in, especially in the private sectors, because that is where we have clogged employment status. The government doesn't employ a lot of people compared to what the private sector does. If we can sit down at a point where we are forgetting the education, we want to infringe the rights of education for our own children in cost of a renovation of State House, which has fully lived to be renovated, or the office of the president, then I think we don't have a country, and at a point we feel, we the youth of this nation, we are at risk, especially the younger siblings who are behind us. Now this burden will be given to us. And that is why we are having a higher uprise of even people who are committing suicides. Because at a point someone is asking, okay, I have now 2 children, I am so young, what do I do with these 2 children? The government has already taken their health money away from them. There is no Linda Mama currently. The SHA now has come to infringe the rights of these young Kenyans and everyone. The national funding model itself, it is infringing the rights of every campus student who is outside there. So sitting down and asking ourselves a lot of questions. By the way, we end up with ulcers because we don't have any answer. And the main question you should be asking, if they pass that finance bill, what do we do? Because we are tired. We are a tired nation. Thank you. My name is Dana Makena Kimathi, National Deputy Secretary General, United Patriotic Movement. Thank you.
Thank you for that. She's asked an extra question, but the one still remains. Do you feel like this finance bill and the budget set to be read is actually for the bottom up? I don't know who has a microphone among you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Stefano. I'm from Activista Nairobi. For me, I don't think it's really for the bottom up, for the real mwananchi, because it's the finance bill mostly, it's going to affect the common mwananchi, like the mama mboga, because even the healthcare, I see the finance bill, the drugs, there will be no VAT exemption on the drugs. That means the price of drugs is going to be so high, because even if you go to this health facility, you will go there and then you are being told go and buy drugs outside the chemist. That means it's going to increase the price of the drugs too. In terms of the digital economy, there's an increase of tax in terms of digital tax on the 15% on the digital economy. And as we have seen, Kenya is growing in terms of the digital space. That means the digital content creator are going to get the burden because of their content is going to be taxed. And then also the phone, because the digital, we are going to the digital world. In terms of the phone, they have also removed the VAT in terms of the phones, the phones which are manufactured locally. That means the price of phones is going to be increased, because most of us, those who are coming from informal settlement, we depend on the mulika mdogo mdogo phones, the one which we pay mdogo mdogo. That means if there's no VAT in terms of those in manufacturing of these phones, the price is going to be up. And that, what does that mean to the common mwananchi? That means you are going to burden your pocket. You are going to pay more. So for me, I feel like this tax is not much to the common mwananchi. And also in terms of the debt, we need to do our audit, our budget, audit in terms of the debt, so that the Kenyan knows that these are the amount that the debt we owe. And also we need to separate the finance in terms of the Ministry of Finance and Treasury, because there's a lot of conflict of interest. So we need to have a separation between the finance docket and also the Treasury docket, so that we also realign the work parallel, not the same as the work together. Thank you.
Thank you for that insight. We have to work, all government institutions have to work together to be able to achieve this. Do you feel like this actual budget is bottom up, or is meant for the bottom up? Is it supporting those at the end of the pyramid or not? Let's just have one. Is there anyone who agrees that it is? You agree it is? Okay, thank you. Tell me why you disagree it is not.
Please
stand up and share your name.
So thank you so much. My name is Habi Bomer. I make a lot of noise around the streets of Nairobi and across Kenya. Please allow me just to observe a moment of silence for Albert Ojwang. Thank you. As we demand the justice for Albert Ojwang, because it's very, very, I think at the beginning you were trying to worry about us coming here and be able just to add our voice into the conversation. But we must speak. We don't fear. We have nothing to fear about, because at the end of the day, even dictators will die. Even Moi died. Anyway, talking about the bottom up, actually right now, when even the budget itself, vile tuko, mama mboga hata hawezi pereka mtoto wake shule. Mama mboga hawezi enda hospitali. So hata tukiongea, hakuna vile hii budget yenyewe ina faidi mama mboga. Because when you look at the current proposal, mkate inaenda kupanda from 65 to 75. Already saizi, kuna watu hata hawezi afford hiyo mkate. And some of us rely on that. Some of us tukikunywa hiyo chai and we take the bread, we call it a day. So the reality is that this is a budget that e-government ailan. Because you want to burden the common mwananchi. We are here because of budgeted corruption. Talk about Aror Kimwaret Dam. We lost over 21 billion. Talk about KEMSA scandal. We lost 7.8 billion the Eurobond. So we borrow as people steal. Talking about the debt, it is not even clear what Veronica is saying. Hata yeye hajui kwa sababu hata serikali yenyewe haijui kama kitu tunadaiwa ni ukweli ama si ukweli. Kwa sababu wakati hata hizi nini zinasainiwa, do we involve the public? Are they in public domain? Nobody knows, even the members of parliament. Yet we have legal provisions on how we need to be able to take loans and debt, but we do not follow those procedures. We have a parliament that has been compromised, that speaks the language of the executive. So how do you expect them to be able to be accountable and champion for the rights of the so-called Mama Mboga? So the reality is, we are still in the same problem. And the government, hii yenye hiko saizi, because saizi wako broad-based. Saizi pia tunaita blood-based. So they feel like Raila coming on board and them being strong, there's nothing Kenyans can do. Mutadu, it is like Mutadu. Because if we went to the streets last year, people died, people were killed. Up to date, people are dying. And you're not even listening to the real issues people are talking about and questioning. Then what are we talking about? You have scrapped everything. You're not even allocating anything to education. Hata nini exam fee, mmetoa. Saizi mnatuambia mna renovate State House each and every year. Kuna ghost workers kama kina Mudavadi. Those are unconstitutional offices and being paid by taxpayers' money. We cannot have a country where tuko na 47 governors, tuko na 47 deputy governors and all that. Unapata governor akona 38 legal advisors. For what? Then we talk about burdening mwananchi wa kawaida. Kwa sababu, hii pesa ambao, you have talked about 100 bob ambao inachukuliwa. In fact, 70 bob inaenda kulipa deni. 30 bob ndio inabaki inataka kubudget for drugs, roads and everything. Na kwa hii 30 bob, bana wanataka kuiba. So, in real sense, which kind of a country are we talking about? So we are continuing to burden the common mwananchi, and it's upon us. Even as we have this discussion, we will continue having this discussion. But what is it that we need to be able to do? I think that also need to be able to inform part of the discussion as we continue having this discussion. And just as these have said, easy conversation tunafaa kuhave from the beginning. Veronica, nashindanga nikikwambia, unajua tukitoka about public debt, hizo big jargon. Yes. Mama Mboga haelewi. So yeye hata kikuja kama hii yenye PR yenye ilikuwa inafanywa juzi, apewe leso, apewe nini, anaona ni kama serikali inafanya nini? Inamjali, but hii ni nini? Ni pesa yake.
The notion that this is bottom up was what we used in the campaign, but it's not impractical. There is one gentleman who said that he believes that this budget might just be bottom up. I don't know if you are agreeing or disagreeing with it. I felt like you agree with it. I believe we still have more to contribute. Do you believe that this is a bottom-up budget before we get into another question? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Musila Jr. You can call me Chinaman the MC if you like. I do not want to say quite vividly that this budget responds majorly to the needs of the people on the bottom of the pyramid, but I want to say this. Just before we confuse the conversation on the finance bill and the budget, you're asking questions on the budget. So I will not even touch on what the finance bill is providing for now. Let me just focus on the budget. We mentioned here that the budget is 4.3 trillion. And out of this budget, we anticipate or we estimate KRA will only be able to raise about 3.3. Actually 2.9, 2.7 from tax revenue and 559 on levies, non-tax revenue. This brings it to about 3.3 trillion. 3.1 of that money goes to recurrent expenditure. So this is to say we are left with nothing for development because all the money has almost essentially gone to recurrent expenditure. Now, we've already said again here, payment of debt is given precedence. So remove even from this money that we've already raised to pay loans. So again, we are left on nothing to first meet the needs on the recurrent expenditure and again meet the needs on development. If you look at that budget even further, by simple calculations, about 72 goes to recurrent, 14% only goes to development. Now we are saying there is lack of access to water. Because of what? Lack of proper water infrastructure. So if we cannot give people piped water because we cannot create the piping, then we cannot supply people water. If we can still go to a school in Baringo or other parts of the remote part of Kenya and find two classes sharing the same room, one looking on the other wall and the other looking on this other wall, and yet we've only budgeted very little towards that, then we are not guaranteeing that. The only thing I would say, and it is on paper, because if we go into the intricates, the details of this finance budget, we look, it is not even realistic. That maybe for the first time, Kenya has allocated above the threshold of the declarations they've assigned to, like the Maputo protocol, which says we need to allocate at least 15% of our budgets to health and to education. This year, according to what we are reading on this paper, it's 28% allocation to education. But if you listen out here, next year students will be paying fees on themselves, free primary education will go. Then what is this 28% allocation to? Because the reality on paper does not reflect on the reality qua ground, where then is the bottom. So further, as I finish, hata ukiangalia hiyo story yote za recurrent expenditure, we are saying even in government, there is people in the bottom of the pyramid. I mean the majority of the people. But the salaries up here could even take a big chunk for a small population than even at the bottom of the pyramid. So again, we're still insisting this particular budget, like the many other budgets that have come ahead of us, do not address the immediate need of the people at the bottom of the pyramid, and it's getting scarier every year.
Clearly, there is a problem, and there's a big difference between what is on paper and what is on the ground. My goodness. I don't know if I have a lot of time, but because you have the mic, please give me your opinion on what you think about the bottom-up pyramid and the Finance 2025.
Okay, thank you. So for me, I want to be the devil advocate. I want to be the devil advocate today. First and foremost, we must be alive to the international situation that is grappling Africa. So currently, the donor countries are reducing what they are giving. Majorly, Africa is one of the beneficiaries. So they are increasing their defense spending and reducing their donor spending. So first and foremost, we must ask ourselves, as practitioners in the NGOs field or even in the government field, are we also accountable to the donor funding? Two, Japan, which is one of the major contributors to Kenya's development. Currently, if you look at the bond market, Japan is currently grappling with a very huge bond issue. So we must also be alive to the fact that Japan, one of the huge development contributor to Kenya's development, is also grappling with an issue at home. So it is time for us to look at how we can mobilize resources back at home. And then the situation we are facing is also contributed by the Kenyans' populace appetite for development. We must also be alive to the fact that the government, from Kibaki government up to Ruto's government, have been increasing, they have been complying with what my friend has talked about the Maputo Declaration on education funding. They have increased funding. So, but is the reality on the ground that what the government has been investing in education and the returns, are there any returns on that? Two, if you look at vaccine contribution right now, we must be alive to the fact that in 2029, Gavi will stop funding vaccine to us. So currently, we are grappling with vaccine shortage. Then you ask yourself, why are we grappling with vaccine shortages? It's because Kenya has advanced to the lower middle income country. And advancing to the lower middle income country means that Kenya no longer can receive the 100% funding it was receiving from Gavi Alliance. So we must also be alive to that fact. So coupled with all those, we also must be alive to also us as the local populace. Are you contributing to the local taxes?
Now, before
you know, as much as you are demanding development from the government, you as yourself, are you honest in remitting taxes? So we must be alive to the fact that there are local issues and also there are international issues. And lastly, if you allow me, if you look at the debt schedule, I'm not going to lie to you, us as the youth, if you're currently at 20, 30 years, manzen kunoma, because the respect we can feel is from 2030, if you look at the debt schedule. So, kama una plan kwa na family ama mtoi, you should put that perspective into your head. And I can't lie to you, if you put either Gachagua, if you put Omtata or Maraga, and you don't have a strong parliament there, there'll be nothing that will be done. So for example, if you put, let's say, a good candidate like Maraga, and he doesn't have the MPs to back him up with reforms, and also you as Kenyans, are you ready when Uhuru will be audited, when they want to jail him? Are you ready for that? You know, we must also be alive to the fact about the local politics. So as we come with this conversation, we should also be alive to the fact that also us, our local behaviors, are also the contributory factors to where we are currently.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Our job as citizens, are we playing it right? Something I see very common a lot of times when people are becoming the devil's advocate, we always throw it to other countries. Are they doing as badly as we are? And yet we live in our own country. But that's not a question for right now. We're going to be going round one more time. But for now, we have to shift. We have to shift a little bit. But of course, we factor in some of those conversations of are we participating as citizens in paying our debt? Are we filing our taxes? And I know it's tax season already, almost end of June. We're going to be tax season. I don't know if some of you have paid your taxes. If you haven't, please participate so that we cut down this debt. Maybe you not filing nil returns this 2025 will maybe help us, cut a shilling or two. So let's try and look at that. Now let's look at the budget priorities for the Finance Bill 2025. Remember, the budget is going to be read at the end of this week, if I'm not wrong. One thing that we can definitely be said is that there are two economies in Kenya. So kuna ile economy ya kizungu, what we were saying, what is on paper, and which is always doing well. We always hear that we're growing by 5%. We're one of the growing economies in East Africa. That's a very common sentence we hear every time, but I don't know if we still are one of the growing economies when we look at what Tanzania are doing. But there's the real economy that is on the ground. What are people on the ground saying? Wanja, let's start with you.
Thanks so much. First and foremost, just to appreciate all the young people who have given their contributions, but also to put into context. And my friend, nimesikia unajiita MC China. I think you meant to say the Abuja Declaration of 2001 is the one that talks about 15% on health. Maputo Protocol is also good, but it talks about the rights of African women, just as a note. Now, Kate, there was a research that was done in Kenya less than 3 weeks ago. It said 800 women aborted in the other year. You remember? 800,000 women. You guys remember? They aborted. And for those of us maybe who might be putting our head in the sand, we'd say, hey, how sinful. But those of us who want to know what's happening, we were quick to look at the report and ask, what are the primary reasons that these women were giving? Now, most of them, the primary reason that they give is economic hardships. Because we know that abortion is illegal in the books, but it happens. Those are the abortions that manage to get into the healthcare system. So because we also know the backstreet one that happened, let's call them 1 million. Now, you can just see that there are people who are finding themselves in so many hardships that they are saying, because of the current state of the economy and the cost of living, I cannot be able to bring up a child. And that is a whole health on your population. Kate, it's important to note that even though Kenyan people are always blaming Kenyans, have you paid your taxes, what have you? Article 43 of the Kenyan Constitution talks about socio-economic rights. It talks about every Kenyan, regardless of whether you are poor, like that dad in Gatondo whose child died because of an ambulance, you have the right to the highest attainable standards of health. So in an ideal country, you should not die ama unaenda unajikuta kwa some place because you don't have money to pay. Now, this is now tied to issues of devolution where health is a devolved function. It is so unfortunate that this issue of SHA, the biggest promoter of SHA is Kasongo. However, health is a devolved function. So if you really wanted to know if it's working, it should be the governors. Health is a devolved function. They're the ones who deal with the sick. How come you've never had any governor praising SHA that it's helping the people? What am I saying? What I'm saying is that some of these, the way that budgets are done, and Kenyans should, okay, take an MCA for example. If you have MCA who are friends or cousins, if they're in Nairobi County, hawapendangi kufanya mikutano Nairobi. Wanaendanga Nakuru, Naivasha au Mombasa. Why? Kwa sababu kifanya mkutano hapa baraza la mlipe coffee, hakuna per diem. So wanaendanga out of town so that they can get the allowances. Now kitambo allowance yenye ulikuwa unapewa ikipita 2K inataksiwa. Kwa hii budget estimate imeenda mpaka 10K. So what do? Sisi tunataka kwenda kufanya conference yetu Nakuru. Of course, you know they don't do very much. Wanaendanga kufanya party. Wanafanya very little. Wanapewa a per diem of like 10 days. Wanapewa maybe your 10K times 50. So even when you talk about the salaries yenye analipangwa, within 1 week, someone for just doing their job, because that is their job as an MCA, they have made another 50K on the side. There was a story that was being given in France somewhere, so that our leaders also can listen to the people. Isn't these the same leaders who made fun of the Gen Z? Wakasema mko na iPhone, mnaenda KFC. They made the Gen Z look like they are spoiled, hawana cha kufanya. Now, the story in France was like a leader aliambiwa, watu wako wako njaa. Watu wao in French at the time people like to eat bread. Akasema kama ataki bread wakule maybe queen cake kama Black Forest ya hiyo time. I think in Kenya ukisema watu wana ugali wataambiwa kule pizza. Now for those of us who are trying to lose weight wataambiwa hakukula. Kwani alikuwa intermittent fasting. So there are no people who will actually see that some of these hard economic decisions that are being done are affecting the microeconomics of a household, where a family that could eat. By the way, do you know in Kenya there are children who don't eat a balanced diet? Surely unajua mandazi na chai hata haina nutritional value. Mtoto anakuwa, akili inakuwa, hakuna free food now. This budget imekata vitu za free food for the children. So I think some of these big macroeconomics za venye tumeambiwa na IMF na venye wana budget and how it is resonating with this person who is called the hustler. That's where the thing is. Our friend there on the left aliongea about the donor funding na vile zimekatika. Now, wacha tuchukue USAID for example ya America. I'm sure ukienda kliniki yote Nairobi ama Ushago unaonanga kastika kameandikwa from USAID, from the American people. Now, wale Kenyans wenye wanaishi positively with HIV and AIDS, forgive my sensitivity, you know it's an interest, it's a unique population. See, those people have to eat a balanced diet. So those people rely on medication per month. Now, USAID ndio ilikuwa ina fund hizo medications za watu who live positively. We know they are also children. Now the AIDS, the government agency that deals with people who live positively, the budget yao haija increase from last time. However, pesa za madona agency kama USAID zimekatika. So kuna gap ya zile pesa. Basically we as a country we had said tumeweka health ya watu wetu HIV positive population kwa goodwill ya wazungu. Now, if the wazungu are not giving us money, we have therefore to prioritize those people because they are people. We cannot start moral discussions around the circumstances they became unwell. What am I saying? What I'm saying, Kate, is the young people, if you want them to pay the taxes, you must make the business to have an enabling environment for them to hustle. You must make it very easy for them to do the digital work. You make it easy for them to do their job, provide security, ndio wasiharasiwe na kanjo. So I do not think that they have, kama mtu ana pesa, so atafile nini isipokuwa kufile nil return. In Kenya hata wanafilingi nil ama hata wanakosa kufile. So therefore the government, we are not telling them to do much, we are just telling them create an enabling environment so that the young people can be able to do vibrant businesses. By the way, have you ever noticed government people wakiongea vitu za youth wanasemanga the youth to start small businesses. They don't like us to start big businesses. They just want us to be funny and small. So for me, all the issues are even tied to issues around governance. They are tied to issues about our MPs who have been captured. I don't understand why MPs, we are clapping for them, wakipea youth boda, trolleys, make smoky. President is going and apea charge 20 million. Where did it come from? It means ni pesa za free primary education zimechukuliwa, zifanye populism. And Kate, because I know you want me to finish, unaona hiyo kitu inaitwa domestic borrowing. That is where the real issue is. Juu tume over talk about hizi vitu za wazungu. Basically, domestic borrowing ni government inaenda kuomba bank, tusitaje mabank majina. Baraza Lab Bank. Sasa kwa sababu bank za Kenya pia zinakuanga na ma politicians and all, politician mwenye ako owner of capital anabai ma treasury bond mingi kwa sababu ushaisikia government ikisema nunueni treasury bills and what have you. So one of the characteristics ya hizo vitu za government inakuanga low risk high return. So unapata the owners of capital ndio watanunua hizo mabills mingi alafu wapate maprofit mingi. Alafu wanaweza borrow hata pesa kwa sababu sasa watu wa bank wanajua already gava itarudisha in whichever way, watumie hizo pesa kufanya campaign, watumie hizo pesa kusimamisha kufanya hizo mapopulists. Siku hizi wanapeana mpaka beans, wanapeana baiskeli. So I think we have now to start even talking about these local banks that you can even start now looking kwa hizi mabank zote zenye huwa zinapeananga hizi pesa, who are the real owners? Because unajua Kenya kuna kuanga na watu wenye wako front facing alafu kuna watu behind the curtain. So I think this issue is so big, but when it comes to a person who is young, you know, the Gen Z wanakaanga ni kama watu wadogo, watu hawajielewi. By the way, unajua Gen Z ushago mwenye akona miaka 28 akona bibi, watoto 4, ng'ombe, kuku, ni mzazi, you know. Hawa Nairobi ndio wanakaanga painting hapa. Ni wazazi. Ushaona mtu wako na miaka 29 lakini ni mzazi. They have things, wako kwa chama, akona kesi kwa chief, ni watu. So na huyo mtu before umwambie hizi vitu za digital, bei ya kwa hii finance bill, bei ya kutengeneza unga ya yenye yu upewa ng'ombe, inputs zimepanda. So kama na baingi gunia 1k sasa imekuwa 15k. Bei ya maziwa itapanda, bei ya mayai itapanda, bei hizo vitu zitapanda. So even when talking about the impact of young people wasikae tu pasa by. Kuna young people, my mother gave birth to me at 19.
Well.
So ni alikuwa mzazi at 30, si alikuwa mzazi.
Yes.
So there's majenzi wengine na millennials ni wazazi hata pengine ni grandparents. So these issues are real. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The number 5%, we're growing 5%, is something we hear the government say all the time. Even when we're going around East Africa, we have a growth of 5%. But on the ground, we're seeing that is different. Why do we have this change in numbers? Is what is said on paper versus what is happening on ground? Why do you think this is common?
Well, it's a difficult question. Economists measure how the economy is growing, and they have standard ways of calculating the way the economy is growing. So one of those is looking at what we call the gross domestic product, the GDP. Essentially saying what do we own as a country this year, what do we own next year, and what's the difference? There is no better way so far that is standard that we can compare across the world. So economists still prefer to use GDP and GDP growth. However, we have come to learn, all of us, that GDP and that GDP growth can be there. But there can also be these other people who are not feeling the 5% or the 4%. And it's because of those really granular things that you can hear everyone in this room talking about. So yes, when the numbers are done and calculated, it's possible to see that it's 5% or it's 4.7 or it's 6. But then when you look at the actual people who are in that economy, they're people who don't just feel it. And one of the reasons is the way the economy is structured. You see that conversation about who owns capital. It's a big thing because I think it's the National Bureau of Statistics that does the economic survey, right? So they will do and show you every year that what sector of the economy led to that 5.2. When you look at it keenly, you will find things like financial intermediation and places and banking and the rest of them where people are actually doing well. But how many of you here have parents or brothers or sisters who own banks or who have shares in banks? So it's possible that there are people who every year feel that the economy is growing because I think you talked about the way the gap between the middle class, the upper middle class is increasingly expanding, meaning tuko wengi hapa chini. And I liked that conversation about even in government, there are so many guys who earn 50,000 bob and below, and in fact there are many. But there are also guys who are earning 700,000 and 600,000, and if you add those allowances, those people will feel the economy because they've got capital. They are able to buy those shares. They're able to go to Treasury and buy those bonds. They're able to identify the sectors of the economy that led to that 5.2. But the rest of us who are talking about how the bottom up is, appealing to them, ni how ambao the government has, banks have given money to the government, meaning those banks, with all those banks, now cannot give money to these ordinary guys who want to do business. So your mkwanja that you are expecting, because you started a small hustle, for example, those guys who are given trolleys to sell eggs, those trolleys are not the end of the story. The next thing is to buy the eggs, to boil and to sell. If a bank cannot give you that money, or if you can't borrow it, it means you will not enjoy that 5.2%. So it is true that we can do our calculations and Treasury can present and project that the economy is going to grow by this amount every year because they're using that number. And there's still not a better way to do it. But the economy, or the real economy, will have folks like the ones who are in this auditorium today telling you how, I don't think there's anyone here who will stop here and say, comparing last year and 2023, they feel like they made more money or they feel like their pockets were better. You can ask.
Very few to none. The last time I had the name Mkwanja, I can't remember where it was, but it but remember, today the topic is Mahesabu Kali Kali. You can hear the numbers going up and down. One thing I'd like to ask Veronica and also Gladys is the missed opportunities, the budget priorities for the Finance Bill 2025. We've already seen some of the priorities are maybe on expenditure. Some of them, a big chunk of it has been on debt, which we have discussed. What are some of the missed opportunities in the priorities for this budget for 2025?
I think this is something that I've been raising from, I think, way back in 2016. And we are a country that never produces. So, as a country, we can never grow with taxation. At every time you want to increase your revenue, you want to go back and look which items are zero rated that we now start taxing. Looking at world economies, the likes of the US, China, those countries have grown because of industrialization. We are a country that we are capable of coming up with industries and even the manufacturing sector, incentivizing it. We are a country that we can be able to produce more through agriculture. But what is happening? So like right now, I think the budget allocation for agriculture is only 2.2%. And yet we are saying as a country, we need to work towards food security. So I think our priorities when it comes to how we can be able to produce more are misplaced. And I don't know whether, I really sit down and ask myself whether the people at the Treasury and even the Parliament, whether they ever sit down and ask themselves whether whatever it is that you are doing is the right way. It's like having a father at home. Kazi yake tu ni kwenda akiboroboro. Leo anaboro kwa bank, kesho anaboro kwa sako. And instead of seeing there's a shamba there, maybe that they can be able to use and produce, haoni hivo, unaona? So for me, I sit down and ask myself, we have the extractive sector, that is the mining sector. That for a very long time, the narrative is always that it contributes to 1% of the economy. Why can't we use the sector to produce more? Because I know it's capable. Why can't we open up the sector? Why is it the sector for the longest time has become very closed and it's only done, the people who do mining, if you follow, are not the common mwananchi.
Not locals even.
Yeah. And even where they are locals, it's not just a common person, it is who in the country. So I've seen, like in Botswana, the diamond industry has really contributed a lot to the GDP of the economy. So I do understand. I don't know whether it is a Kenyan problem or whether it is an African problem. There's just a problem somewhere because right now we are grappling up with unemployment. If we borrowed money to create industries across each county, would have employed young people. Those people are going to pay as you earn. Taxes is going to increase. I mean, we'll not have even a problem servicing some of these debts, you know? But we are here. What the government is doing is inabeba vijana inapeleka Saudi Arabia. Mtu analipwa pesa ngapi, you know? So, I mean, it's so depressing when you start thinking about it. So if we could, as a country, factor in and look at sectors that can contribute to the economy in terms of production. The mining sector is one of it. The agriculture is also another sector. We have a lot of arable land that is lying just like that. Why can't we farm? And then I remember there was a conversation the other day we were saying that some of these people are holding very big chunks of land and they're doing nothing with it. Why can't we tax that land as well? So that people do not leave that those huge chunks of land lying bare. They make use of it. Can we use those pieces of land to produce, to sell even to other countries? But for as long as we are a country that we import even basic things like toothpick, tunatoa China, fish, omena zinatoka pia China, will continue borrowing, and every year we'll continue having budget deficits, and we'll definitely continue having situations whereby, like right now, we are saying now we can even not support the exam fee for children. So now, he said that education, I think education has been given 17%, and I think in terms of sectors, it is the one that has received the highest amount of allocation. But again, you look at things that they have scrapped, like free feeding program. For those of us who have worked in marginalized areas, there are children who go to school purposely because of the food. I've worked in Baringo, whereby children as young as 2-3 years are taken to ECD schools because there's a cup of uji that is being provided. Now, when and even in slum areas here, there are children who 3 years, 2 years, anapelekwa shule, akakaa huko ndio apewe chai, ama lunchtime, maybe they serve rice with beans, anaekewa anakula. Unaona? So, we are scrapping that. What are we saying? So this 17%, where exactly is it going to, and who is it going to benefit? There are people who miss out to school, maybe for a whole term, maybe wamefukuziwa school fees, but ikifika wakati wa exam, anaenda anafanya exam na anapita. I know majority of Kenyans, that's how they used to survive. Now, when you scrap even that exam fee, sasa unasema the government is not going to take care of the exam fee, ni mzazi alipe. What are we saying? So, as a country, I don't know how we are going to pump it into the relevant people, but we need to just have our priorities, right? Let us see sectors that are able to produce and contribute to the economy. How best do we spur them so that we do not depend on taxes? Usually, like now, the person who is employed right now, wamefinyilia kabisa, unajua kufinyiliwa kabisa. So even right now, I think I was asking myself whether it is worth being employed in this country, because it's like half of what you are getting is going to government. And then half of what you are left with, you are still supposed to struggle to access basic commodities like health. You see, if half of what I receive goes to government, and I know if I go to a public facility, I'm able to be treated without necessarily having to go back to my pocket, I think I'll be okay with that. But for as long as it's taken, and then I'll still have to struggle to see how best I can be able to afford basic commodities, it is going to be a little bit hard.
I think one of the things we really want to have in this discussion is to be very solution-oriented. But I will highlight something that you have mentioned about the siphoning of labor, having more youth being sent outside, because even earning in this country is quite unprofitable for anyone. But for the first time I had the president talk about labor siphoning, but he talked about it in a marriage context, that more women are being married outside, instead of saying that the fact that more labor is leaving the country. But anyway, we can see where the priorities are for the leader of our state today. But we still have to be very solution-oriented. What are some of the missed opportunities that we are seeing with the Finance Bill 2025 or the Finance Budget 25? The missed opportunities that we can have what are some of the missed opportunities or priorities we can have to make sure that moving forward, we can factor this in to help the Kenyan?
Okay, before I answer your question, allow me to add something on the GDP numbers. In addition to the GDP, overall GDP numbers, we also have other reports by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and none of them is poverty. And maybe that can answer the question why some of us are not feeling the growth. And according to the KNBS, the latest report was done in 2022. Not sure if the poverty numbers have gone up or down, but about 40% of Kenyans are poor. So around 20 million Kenyans live below the poverty line. So that means they are not able to afford basics, food, education, health. And then on top of that, there's inequality, what we were talking about, who owns what. Probably after here, we can look up at some of the inequality reports that an organization called Oxfam produces. And in one of them, they say the top 1% controls 6 times more than what the rest of 99% control. So even if there is growth is felt more by that 1% compared to the 99% of us. So in terms of missed priorities, again, because at IPF we do a bit of research, I would refer us to a document we produce every year. It's called the Annual National Shadow Budget. We usually try to link the financial information in terms of budgetary allocation and key performance indicators in the non-financial information, which was one of the key things program-based budgeting was supposed to make it a reality. So in the analysis we did, the report was launched in April, and part of it is around the size of government. And we are currently, I try as much as possible to not use Habib's terms, but let me use the broad-based government. I think that is what they call it. The size of government increased significantly. And for those of us who look at the budget numbers at the program level, we have seen some departments, state departments, headed by a PS, running just one program. And looking further deeper, you see most of that expenditure will be going to recurrent spending, salaries, rent, and all that, because when the president appoints a PS, that PS does not come alone. We come with many others, so most of the budget, like an example could be children's services. Previously it was merged with senior citizen services or something, so they were one state department, so they have been separated to 2. So there are 2 PSs with a whole office and a whole staff behind them. So in terms of size of government, I think our government is growing significantly. And apart from that, the duplication within government itself. Let me use devolution as an example. We have 47 county governments. And at the national level, we have various institutions that are supposed to be supporting devolution. An example, Council of Governors. Another example, Intergovernmental IGRTC, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. I see you shake your hand. I don't your head. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it now tries to help us fully devolve functions that were left undevolved. And then there's also the State Department for Devolution. At the National Treasury, there's a department that is called IGFRD, Intergovernmental and Fiscal Relations Department. So how many institutions are those? Serving one purpose, devolution. And the number may not be that significant, but looking beyond the top level. There are 5 institutions, yes, but what is the size and what purpose are they serving? Looking at other, we talk about devolution and how we didn't devolve fully, like looking at water. And then there's also like the State Department for Assaults. And I would encourage us to be looking at the sector working group reports. They're usually produced around November or January, depending on how the calendar moves along. And that's why you find detailed information. So you'll find under assaults, there's a program doing boreholes. You go to the Ministry of Agriculture because there's irrigation, there's a program whose work is to do boreholes. Go to the Ministry of Water, you find more boreholes. Go to the regional development agencies, you find even more boreholes. And then from the information given in these budget documents, you can't tell the distribution of them because maybe they are done in different areas, but beyond that, it's the coordination of it. How can we put these boreholes in one program so that we have a holistic view of the kind of programs we are implementing? So duplication in government is massive. The size of government, the government is very big. I was looking at the budget committee report. They were quick to highlight that the national government CDF has received a cut and have an allocation of 58 billion. These are the same people that will come back to us and give us bursaries. But then at the aggregate level, at the Ministry of Education, we are saying we are no longer able to fund free secondary and primary education. But if you look at the numbers, they don't even consume that 58 billion that is going to national government CDF. So how can we better reorganize our government to be more efficient and actually to be more equitable?
The shadow budget you have mentioned, it's important for all of us to have a look at it. Maybe that is a budget we need to apply to our country to be able to have it. Over-representation, a problem that we have seen again and again and has been put out. But I want to take the question to our viewers back at home. What are some of the missed opportunities that we have seen in the Finance Bill 2025? And also to my audience, I'm going to be asking that question is, what are some of the missed opportunities you feel that we have had that if we were able to jump onto or to maybe emphasize on, like she mentioned, mining, just 1% of it apparently contributes to, you know, our finances in the country. What are some of these missed opportunities that maybe we are not being so keen to look at that might be the ones to save us? So if you have an answer for that, please put your hand up and you'll get a microphone sent to you. I have one person here. What are some of the missed opportunities that we are lacking in this Finance Bill 2025 so that we can be able to achieve maybe, you know, a better economy?
I'll just go straight.
Your name?
My name is David Karari, grassroots human rights defender. I'll go straight to the missed opportunity. We're investing in renovating State House. In real sense, we should be opening up State House to visitors for it to be able to generate its own income. It's being done.
White House, for real?
It's being done in White House. Yeah. State House has a lot of history in it. If today it's opened up to the public, I would want to take my children there. I'd want to visit. We've had a lot of gifts given to this country. And where do they go? To State House. So if today State House was opened up, and people, we've seen buses of children coming from Mashinani to come and see the museum. We can't generate a lot of income when we open up State House. People will want to go and see what is happening there. So that is an opportunity that if we are keen enough to look at it, because White House is doing the same thing. You have people visiting it from far away. If today visitors were coming outside the country and you told them, let's go and see how this great country, who are those people who started the governorship of this country, the British, how Kenya was started as a company, they would want to go and see it. So instead of investing so much in State House, let's open it up to the public. That would save us a lot of money.
Thank you for that. I don't know where else we will be able to open up, or they'll make it look like it's a missed opportunity, a national security issue, but thank you for that. Missed opportunity. I want someone else before we come to you. Do you feel like we have a missed opportunity? We had a hand up right there. I don't know if you can, Wanja, if you can pass your mic back to him, that you can, what are some of the missed opportunities we have and that we could be able to jump onto in our Finance 2025? Your name, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alaman. I think it's just a question or probably an insight. If you look at our budget for the security sector, I think there was a time it was increased, then it decreased. And I think right now it has been allocated more actually than the health sector. So the big question is, are we at war? If the answer is yes, fine. If the answer is no, then know for sure that is budgeted corruption. Because we all know that anything concerning the security sector is never audited. All the money that goes to the NIS, the military, they say it's out of reach for civilians. So you know for a fact that out of the around 55 billion allocated to the military or the security forces, I think they probably use maybe around 30 or 40. So ask yourself the remainder, where does it go? And that is how the likes of, I don't know if the likes of the former interior CS, that's how they made their money. And they see, because now nobody could be able to verify. So I think if we are very serious with this country, let us look at the sectors that matter. The health sector, the education sector, let us increase their funding. Then let us look at these other sectors that, for instance, where can we maximize on, where can we minimize? So that if we are serious on austerity measures, then we start from somewhere. But you cannot be talking about austerity measures while our politicians are living the way they are living. Oscar Sudi wakes up one day, gives all the MPs. Now, everybody looks at their members of parliament and thinks they are not working. You are giving these guys pressure. They are going to start stealing from you ×3 to match what Sudi is doing. And Sudi yako wash. Sasa, thank you.
Allegedly, it's important to always put that out there. There's something he has highlighted. The Auditor General is not able to give numbers or to account to what is happening in the budget given to, the forces and the army. Should we change the law to make this not a national security issue so that the military and all these other people who are dealing with interior open up their books? Should we alter that so that we can be able to see the true budget or not? The question still remains, are there some missed opportunities? Please stand up and give us your name and tell us some of the missed opportunities we have for the Finance Bill 2025.
Hi, my name is Sharon Sitati, and I feel like one of the biggest opportunities that we've missed is the tax evasion by the multi-billion companies, because from the previous report, we lose yearly 600 billion from big corporations evading tax because they are claiming that we have employed people. But the tax that we are really following up, ni ile 1,000 bob yenye mtu amefile nil returns. Like I feel like we are focusing on the wrong things, because where we really should be focusing on these are multi-corporations and just evade tax, because 600 billion in 1 year alone, that's a lot of money, honestly. Because we cannot be saying kwamba tuna follow taxes, to follow taxes in the name of, we now have to, Atikere now have to access like M-Pesa so that they can know how much money you are earning. If my friend send me even like 1,000 bob, why are you assuming it's my income tax? Why now do you want to tax that one and forgetting there is a certain company somewhere that is even carrying forward losses. And I don't know how it's called, when you carry forward the losses, so they're not being taxed because they keep carrying forward the losses. And by the end of the year, we realize like we have like even currently I think it's even over 600 billion tax evasion by multi-corporation companies. These people are here earning interest. At the same time, you get that even the people that are working in those companies have very poor conditions. They can be fired anytime. So why are we having big corporations benefiting at the cost of the common mwananchi? And still those common mwananchi are the ones that are being taxed, and the same big corporations are still evading taxes. I feel like that's where we have really not tapped into. And I feel like another one will be the tax incentives and for the direct investment for the foreigners. You feel like most of the time when foreigners are coming to invest, the taxes are ni kama zina our benefit than when sisi tunaenda kuinvest in their own country. And currently you realize like even in a lot of, for the Kenyans that are even in other countries, allow me to speak Swahili. Zile taxes ziko huko unapata kwamba haziwafavor sana. Like even the investment they can make huko ni very little. But wao wakikuja huku, they are really benefiting. Right now even like maybe, let's even talk about maybe going to UK or other countries. It's very hard for you to go. But sisi tume open two borders, na wanakuja to very directly even without having a lot of sweat. But sisi wakati tunaenda, it's taking a lot. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say. Like it's getting a lot yenye. That's maybe a part yenye maybe we need to really be able kwamba if we tap onto that, maybe we'll have quite a lot of revenues that maybe we can generate from that aspect. So maybe the multi-corporations, at least when you evade tax, will follow that part, and also as opening our borders for direct investment while we are giving them tax that is quite reasonable for them, while even for us it's becoming like too much. There's something else I wanted to say about tax austerity. But austerity measures, but I feel like maybe if there is room for another time so that I don't divert.
Please share it now that you have the opportunity.
Okay. Hi cousins. Okay. When I was young, I used to believe that the system is.
You're still young, so you're not when you were young.
Yeah, I believe that. So I used to believe that the systems are there to serve the people. Until recently, when I realized that the systems are there to control the people. And I'll say this, there's something that had been mentioned that when you're talking about public debt, hatuwezi separate the institutions that are funding us. You know why? Nilikuwa nasema, I don't love politics haini affect. Until nikajua any policies yenye imemekiwa huko, international na huko, ina trickle down to how much I'm affording, kufanyaje, kubai ata bread amata, job-wise. And that's something like all of us as Kenyans we forget. Because we think, sio debt tutalipa tu. But wakati unasema hiyo debt tutalipa tu, imekuja na measures. Which measures? We've had about the 60% of our revenues going to izo public debt. Public debt yenye, hata haikuingia. We are already currently paying interest kwa loan haikufika. Mbona nikulipe interest moja nipatia already the money? Hiyo pesa inaenda wapi? Kwa mifuko za watu. And I'm very sure a lot of Kenyans hakuna mtu akona shida kulipa taxes kama inatumika venye inafaa. Kwa sababu mbona analipa taxes? Kwa sababu serikali inafaa kunipatia ABCD. But wakati wanapeana hizi debt loans, unapata kwamba the interest ziko very high. Wakati interest ziko very high, government inasema kwamba hatuta manage kulipa hivi kwa sababu hatuna pesa. So wanaambiwa waje, hamna pesa, simkate hapa na hapa na hapa. Wanakata wapi? Wanakata on the public services. What does that mean? Wakati wamekata on public services, zile vitu ambazo mimi naweza kuafford, siwezi afford. But am I not still paying the taxes? Bado nalipa taxes. You get? So at the end of the day unapata kwamba hakuna jobs, uchumi ina increase. Zile pesa kidogo yenye unaendelea kupata ndo bado wana tax from it. And when you are asking about the bottom up economy, maybe for me I feel like it's only bottom up economy because sisi wenye tuko chini tumesimamiwa ndo au wenye wako hapa juu endelee kufanyaje, waendelee kupanda. But in terms of like it being like sasa tunainuliwa kutoka juu, no. It's us now bending down and letting them stand on our back so that they can continue rising. Because why you telling me kwamba tax yenye umeweka tax kidogo kwa hizi gari 14 million na mimi sasa saa hizi nitatoa 14 million kununua gari? Of course not. So wale ambao wanataka kununua sijui Vitz, sijui whatever hizi gari ndogo sasa hawaezi, but wale wa magari kubwa wanaweza. Zile magari kubwa ni za kina nani? Sini zao. So you realize like kwamba hizi vitu ambazo wameweka hapo, the system has been put there specifically to control the people. And I feel they do this because kitambo, like the middle class walikuwa widen kwa nini? Mimi hizo issues in face kwa sababu I'm not hainiguzi. You know why? Kwa sababu hawakuwa naguzwa. But currently unapata kwamba they're coming for everyone. Others unapata kwamba even wale ambao walikuwa whether you are poor ama you are middle class bado mnakuwa faced. And that's why we really should be able to demand. Even I feel like we have to go back to zile pesa zote ziliwahi ibiwa. Ziko wapi? Because we have sisi unapata kwamba wana follow up case, wanasema pesa imeibiwa, imeenda hivyo. Sijui soda moja, sijui mlibai, sijui 70,000 one soda, case inaenda hivyo. What happens? Mtu anapatikana kwamba aliba sijui mahindi wapi, saizi anatembea. Hizo pesa zilienda wapi? So unapata kwamba hata zile debt zenye tunalipa ni zile zenye yule mtu mwenye aliba akapatikana guilty, bado ako free saizi na anaendelea kuiba na bado tunaenda bado go up kulipa hizo deni. So I feel like these austerity measures have been put there specifically. Why? So that maybe ifike mahali tuseme kwamba the effect of neoliberalism, tuseme kwamba public system has worked. So that ianze kukua ni kama watu waanze kutafuta opportunities for privatization. And then what happens? Uambiwe kwamba wewe kama huwezi afford utajipanga tu. And what happens? Of course mtataka maisha mzuri. What will happen? People now start moving to go to the private one. So I feel like all the austerity measures zinafanywa hivyo kwa sababu so that as the public we can see kwamba system has worked. So that the wealthy and maybe the politicians and everything wanaweza tafuta a place for them to invest and try to get as much wealth as they can. So I feel like even the finance bill right now is just trying to increase the size, like the richer continue to be richer and the poor continue to be poor.
Thank you for that. Please, a round of applause to her. She's given us serious insight. Mgeni anapata opportunity nzuri zaidi kwenye nchi yetu kuliko mwenyeji mwenyewe, which is such a problem for us. But of course, some of the missed opportunities, and I'm so glad we have had that because I wanted this discussion to end up being a solution-oriented discussion. We're constantly complaining of what is happening, but I think we are the only ones who have the solution within ourselves because at the end of the day, we're the ones to file those returns. Now, I want to take this question to something that recently happened. In the last month or so, Kenya passed the Persons Living with Disability Act. It was passed quite late in the budget making process, but it is fundamental to to change for how we will be living in Kenya. Wanja, I'd like to ask, how do you feel about this very act that was passed, and do you feel like it's going to be represented, or maybe part of it has been represented in the Finance Bill 2025?
So much for this. I have so many notes, and thank you so much for the people who contributed. I think I'll just start by reflecting. For many people who are activists, I'm sure you are feminist and you interact with some feminist lines. People say that the personal is political. The personal is political. How the things are happening there, they're affecting you as an individual. By the way, guys, have you heard that every other day we hear funny stories of young men unaliving themselves? Tuliambiwa tukiweka suicide kwa social media tunabaniwa, so tunasema unaliving themselves. For some reason, most of them are men. So you can now start asking, how come the young men are so frustrated with life that they are unaliving themselves? It could be lack of money. Most of the time, lack of opportunities. So how the economy is behaving affect the personal life of people. To narrow it down, Kenyans are not very happy. Unatembea kwa street, unaona ni kama mtu anaweza kugonga na elbow. Have you noticed Kenyans, hata ukipanda Uber, wewe hata una ubaya, mtu anaanza kuambia mashida zake, venye government imeharibika. Then you are like, for those who believe in negative vibes, unashindwa sasa utamwambiaje surely hata wewe uko na mashida zako. So what do I mean? What I mean is that these marginalized people, the women, the youth, there are people who are youth and women and disabled. We are a country of black tax. It's another tax that maybe should be added kwa hizi za Kasongo. Even those people who have an income. By the way, in Kenya, only 17% of people are in the formal economy. the bulk of us na uko 83% wako kwa informal economy. For those who pass through CBD, ule mama bishti yako leo anauza mitumba, kesho anauza mahindi, kukinyesha kidogo anauza mwavuli. Those are the real people who are in this country. They are our parents, you know. So I would say that for you to understand the lived experiences of the poor, it is out of looking at the social sector and how things are. So your average disabled person buys milk at milk is like 58 bob or 60. Everybody buys it at the same price. In a country whereby job opportunities are not so easy to come by, you know, now you see the marginalized people, they are not likely to get jobs. There was a tweet by the presidential advisor on issues. Mr. Skuria made a tweet. He said, the people who are recruited, I'm mentioning him because it's on his public tweet, X. The people who are recruited to be prison warden, they give a bribe of 500K. Sindivaliandika? Nani hapa mzazi wake ako na 500K ya kumbraibia ndio apewe job ya kukua prison warden? So now we are also saying that most of these jobs will be a reserve of people who are able to give kickbacks. But then again, this also leaves us with being told, nyinyi mnalipanga nil, hata mlipangi tax, nyamazeni. Every Kenyan is a taxpayer. You know, kitambo, I don't want to say my age, but I'm just old. I'm an old youth. Let me tell you, there were times mimi nilikuwa na buy smoky 15 bob nikiwa campus. Na ilikuwa tu hivyo venye iko na mapasua na kachumbari. Smoky si ni 40 bob. Si hapo umelipa ka tax. Umekuja na mat na umelipa tax. Umebuy mkate, every time you buy anything, hata juice, hata cocktail tumekunywa, you've paid tax. So never ever be intimidated that nyinyi mayouth hata mlipangi tax mnalipa nil. No. As long as you participate in buying and selling and buying and selling, even if you buy motumba for 100 shilling, kuna venye ilianza tax huko kwa pot. So we are all taxpayers. Let us even in the token, let us start from there. But overall, I would say that there is also a problem that we fail to see in a broad way. Say, for example, and that is tied to the people with disabilities, but overall, the marginalized. Kate, there is a problem with averages. That's why nasemanga, what is the story? And I like to give a perfect example. Tuseme, for example, sai tuko hapa hivi venye tuko mapanelist, si ndio? Kate has 100 shillings. My friend here has 50, and me I have 20. For those who went to school nicely, it is 100 plus 30 plus 20. Hiyo si ni 150. Ukiangalia average is that the average amount of money that tuko nayo ni 150 divided by 3. Sitasema 50. So wale watu wanasema ati averages Kenyans are doing well, tumefurahi, atasema everybody here has 50 shilling. But Kate has 100. She's doing well. Our friend has what? 30. I have 20. I can't afford to go to school. So when we look at averages, the way they are saying Kenyans are doing well, it could be that we are looking at the people who are on the upper side of the quantum. These are people who take their children to private school. Bei ya mkate ikitoka 50 au 60, sasa hiyo ni nini? Wewe unajua kuna watu wanakuanga na mambo mingi, hata kuna mkate inakuanga 300. Imewekwa mahabs, imewekwa mapeanuts, hata si tamu. So wewe ukisema mkate imetoka 50 inaenda 60, anashindwa kwani wewe uko na shida mingi aje? You get what I mean? So I think as a country we should stop now saying the economy has grown to start now looking at inequalities. Ni sawa basi imegrow. But kuna mtu alikuwa anaishi Mathare, sasa mvua imenyesha, amehamishwa na maji, hata na mabati. You look at them and you are like, sasa unajua venye the media wanasema hana mbele wala nyuma. So I think when we now start looking at the lived experiences of the people, we move away now from the averages to say Kenya has become a low income, higher income country. Those are just languages of development. But now we also, by the way, in every neighborhood that is a rich neighborhood, there must be a slum. Wewe unajua difference ya Brayburn na Kawangware ni ukuta. Na ukifika tu hapo hivi ukipita Amboseli hapo kwenu ukianza kwenda hivi hadi weather ina change. Wewe ushisikia ukifika hapo Rusinga school joto inakuwa mingi, sewage, vumbi, matatu na huko kulikuwa kunanyesha. It just tells you the issue of inequality. Kwa Kibera unaonanga ukuta ingine mrefu hivi ni kama the Great Wall of China. Langata iko hii side ndio ile nyumba ya container. So these issues then tells you something. If these people who are employing these people pesa yao zimekuwa kidogo, kama alikuwa nakuita umoshe nyumba, umrembeshe nyumba every week, atakuwa nakuita after 2 weeks. So it affects your economy in the neighborhood. So I think those are some of the issues that are coming to mind, but also just issues of the young people, freedom of expression, dissent. KRA amesema atachukua data yetu. Our friend has said it. Lakini juu Kenya majenzi venye walikuwa naendewa, some people were saying watu walitoa wapi namba ya hawa majenzi. There were even issues of telecommunication companies giving our data. Sasa KRA asante kwa kunisaidia. So inamaanisha if KRA has your data, si watakuwa naona vile umelipa token, vile umelipa water. Mtu wako na token namba yako atakukujia Langata apartment 5th floor house number 5. We also have to talk about privacy. You have the right to privacy. What will they do with that data and to what extent na watapea akina nani? That's why unaona majenzi sometimes they are being disappeared. So I think we are tunakaa kwa tumeshtuka.
Which is not fair
Kenyans
for all of us.
It's not fair for anybody. Yeah.
I'd like to educate us on one thing. As much as we are very scared about Safaricom and Airtel or any other data provider taking our data, there are other countries that owned our data before them. So Africa has never really owned its data. So yes, we have questions of where our data is being taken, but let me just be the bearer of bad news. We've never really owned our own data. Already it's owned by someone else, but we are going to solve those problems. I want to go around at the panel. There's a view that there's a problem with Kenya, and there's always and always trying to kill small businesses. It's something that we see whenever a thriving business comes, the government is quick to pounce on it and tax it, or maybe just kill it. If you look at the attack on the last two budgets on business, it's been quite hard. So my question is, how can we save small businesses? How can we save small businesses?
All right. I think let's come back to the question about debt. Domestic.
Let's stick to this one because our time is running out.
Yes.
How can we save? Oh, it will take us back to
Yes.
debt. Okay.
Yes. The question about domestic debt is it's taking away money that you could go, and those small businesses require capital. Okay. So how to save them is to talk to government. Actually, right now, the policy is that government has drastically reduced the debt that is going to pick up from the external front. What that means is, what they're not taking from the external, they're going to take from these banks and pension funds and all of them. So small businesses will not get credit. So how to save them is to begin by telling government, and I think government knows this, we don't have to tell them. Government knows that when they are taking credit from the domestic source at high rates like 14, 15% and beyond, they're crowding out small businesses. So to me, one of the ways to save small businesses is to get government to stop crowding them out. So government has to figure out how to balance the credit book, but to leave space for businesses. And it links back to this story about the bottom-up economy. The people who will build the economy from this philosophy that we are building it from the bottom going up are small and micro enterprises. The ones we are saying, how do we save them? They need credit, and if government continues to take money from those who could give them credit, then we are going to kill them for real. The second thing, you talked about government finding the new thing and going after them to tax them. It's because you began by saying we're in between the rock and a hard place. Those guys at Treasury really feel it because they're given the job to figure out how this book is going to balance. So when they see young people getting lions on TikTok, and lions are how much? I don't know.
The TikTok gifts.
Yes. And they're saying we want to expand the tax base. And they're seeing that kind of money flowing around. They are incentivized to go after what is already looking like it's a place that can be tapped into. But then a government that professes that it wants to build and grow the economy from the bottom, meaning growing this small and middle income enterprises, we shouldn't be that enthusiastic going at those kind of new innovative ways. So my approach would be that we're already talking about how unequal the economy is, to see how better we can target the guys who she was saying are running away with tax revenues because of tax planning, these guys who go to those big five, KPMG, Deloitte, and them, and they will always, there are companies in this country who just say they did not make anything every other year, meaning they should not be in that business. So those are places where government should spend their energy more than these novel places where guys are still trying to figure out how the, digital content creators and them are operating. So it's possible to find how to get money from such kind of sectors that are coming up, but we must not be that punitive. So we have to balance and be fair to those who are, government has not given them anything. I mean, government has not given, especially content creators, almost nothing, but they have figured out how to make money for themselves and feed themselves, and government essentially might kill those enterprises. So I would look at it in those two areas for now.
Yes.
Stop taking money from what can those small businesses could use to grow, and see how you balance between taxing big enterprises and middle and small enterprises.
I think the big enterprises will be able to help the smaller ones stay afloat. Veronica, I'd like to know, how can we save the small businesses, the ones that we interact with day to day? Even as we leave to go make our supper right now, we are going to go to a small business, get our skuma, and yet we don't want to see her close because she was not able to pay her loan. How do we save the smaller businesses?
Thank you, and I think your Koro is right. The way we do our investment incentives, they're usually more focused on big and international companies. Look at what we have in special economic zones, export processing zones, and the most recent entrant, the Nairobi International Financial Center. And there's already a very big incentive for anyone who will invest through NIFC in the current finance bill. So in terms of how to save, I think we usually say we do not have to reinvent the wheel. Past governments have tried to support the private sector. We have a whole government parastatal dedicated to MSMEs. In the current government, we have a full ministry dedicated to MSMEs. Their focus has mostly been on credit side, but then it's beyond credit. First of all, I can't remember who did the research, but there's research that was done that showed that most MSMEs stay as MSMEs. They do not grow to become bigger businesses. Why is that? The regulatory framework in Kenya. I think someone was giving an example of they had an intention of setting up a water bottling company, and the licenses pushed them out of that decision. And this is not just at the national level, it's also at the county government level, because they have their own regulations and the kind of licenses and permits businesses are supposed to pay. So how do we make it easier for these MSMEs to register and operate? How do we make the cost of inputs cheaper? Right now, we usually talk a lot about promoting local manufacturing, but we go ahead and impose taxes on raw materials that we import. If we are importing raw materials, then it beats logic that you're taxing raw materials and you expect these these businesses to pick up. But then the other thing is, I talked about the institutions. There's KIRDI, I'm forgetting the name in full, KIRDI, but it's supposed value addition. They invest in heavy equipment. I've seen people do yogurt, do peanut butter, do value addition basically. And you pay a service. They have the machinery, you go there, they process your items for you. I do not know if Kirdi is still operating, but there's one that I saw being sold, the numerical machining complex. They were supposed to do prefabricated items like doors and windows, and especially for the construction sector. But I saw it's one of the parastatals that is being restructured or closed down. So such institutions were created to support MSMEs. And because we have a ministry, we have an authority, let them work. The same way we have Can Invest and I think Can Trade for international investors, let's have one dedicated to MSMEs. And you don't have to think very far. We can strengthen the role of micro and small enterprises authority in there. Thank you.
I think that you were looking for is Kenya Industrial Research and Development Secretary. Clearly, if we input some of this parastatals to help the SMEs, we will have an effect. Gladys, I'd like to know, what do you think is a solution to save smaller businesses, some that have closed in 2024, and sadly some that will be closing in 25?
Yeah, so just to say by majority of my colleagues have said, I think factors of production, we need to see how best we can be able to incentivize. As a country, when you look at the cost of electricity, I think it is one of the things that is really driving majority of small businesses out of business. So I was thinking maybe there could just be a policy whereby we have a certain tariff dedicated for small businesses so that people are able to do businesses like salon. I think nowadays even running a salon, a kinyozi, is becoming very hard because of the cost of electricity. We're also an economy that is fuel-driven. So when the cost of fuel goes up, it means that every other thing goes up as well. So it also affects the small businesses. I keep on looking at the Uber, the taxi transport business. And when the fuel goes up, we all see, and we are alive to the struggles of many customers, whereby even when you request and maybe you have a discount, karibu hata uchapwe na driver. So, I think as a country, we need to look at these things. I know when this regime came into power, one of the things that they did, number one, was to remove the subsidies to the fuel. And we all know how it affected. I think even fuel consumption has never gone up since then. So as a country, I think we need to sit down and look at factors of production. How best do we incentivize so that we can be able to attract the local mwananchi to be able to invest? Because the people that we incentivize for, those the big guys, the foreigners who come, in a way we were to analyze that money never remains here in Kenya. Majority of the money goes out of the country. So can we see how best? I think there's a conversation that I always have with some people, and one of the interesting things that's about devolution is that they say that devolution imeleta pesa mashinani, such that hata hiyo pesa ya corruption ambayo iko pale kwa devolution ikiibiwa, wana invest tu hapo. So the money circulates there. Yes, we know it's stolen money, but it circulates around within, so it helps the people. Hapo unasikia mtu akisema ule mwenye hapo ni wa county amejenga hoteli, so that hotel has employed so many people. So even us as a country, we need to look within and see how best we can encourage Kenyans to invest. And also, I think one of the things that really died, I don't think whether it used to be there to wakati wa Moi, ni Kenyans issues of innovation. So I believe that if Kenyans were given an opportunity, we are innovators. If we were supported, we would come up with brilliant ideas. But unfortunately, wakati mtu anajaribu kutengeneza helicopter, ile watu wanajaribu kutengeneza helicopter huko mashinani, huyo mtu anakuwa arrested. And you see this person is just trying to be innovative. So I think we also need to add some investment on innovation. And now we have tried when it comes to issues of STEM, whereby we sciences and mathematics and all that, but we are not doing enough. So the example that she has given, I also wanted to give the same example because I know someone who really wanted to start that in ilibidi afunge because of the people who came. Mara si kebs, sijui ni kina nani, Yeah, so even at the mashinani, you see, umefungua kibanda leo, kanjo wako hapo, sijui nao siku hizi KRA, they are also coming, you know. So as I think we just need to have a policy discussion around it and see how best we can be able to come up with policies that are favorable to the small businesses. Kibaki did it. We can be able to do it. It's not that it's something that has never been done. I know Kibaki did it. He brought finances. He also brought training to people and markets as well. So let's look at the factors of production. Let's see how best we can be able to incentivize, and also let us also invest on value addition. You see a lot of farmers, when there's a lot of milk, there's milk glut in Amwagwa. You remember we used to see in the TV, milk in Amwagwa. But if we add value addition whereby we can be able to maybe use that milk and maybe even make it to powder form, we do not need to import that milk from wherever we import from. We also see in those sides of Nyahururu, wakati waru ziko mingi na nyanya, what usually happens? Yeah, and also opening up some of these areas. You go to areas where they're extremely productive, but the infrastructure is really, really wanting. Especially when it rains, you have a farmer who has farmed, they really need to take these commodities to the market, but the roads are inaccessible. And then lastly, I think what also kills small businesses, brokerage. Yeah, I started doing poultry farming this year, and I gave up on my first attempt. Yeah, because the day I took the broilers up city market, I swear I cried. Because brokers are there, they're buying it at 270 per kg, and ulinunua kifaranga at 130 shillings. Then ongeza the cost of feeding. So you go and then you ask yourself, are you working for brokers or what? So you just stop. So the cost of feeding is very high. Then now kuja kwa brokers wa kugonge, you know. And I mean, it is a problem that is not just on poultry farmers alone. It is within the agricultural value chain. So markets as well. It's something that really the government needs to look at it and see how best they can be able to govern so that we remove the brokers as well.
I think it's essential to note that small businesses are what sustains us as a people, because that's what we consume from. Akwara, I know you have one more thing you want to add. If you can add it in 3 seconds, I'd allow it. Yes.
There is this thing about unpaid bills. I think the national government and the county governments together are holding about 700 billion of money they're not paying. But see, every year they say we collected revenues and we're done with that budget and this is a new budget. But we're also carrying along 700 billion of unpaid bills. And I can tell you there are people who have gone crazy in this country. There are people who have gone to government offices and stripped. There are people who have passed because of stress. And there are especially businesses like the ones we're talking about, because you got a deal with County X or whichever ministry to supply something, because you're just like every other Kenyan trying to earn a living. And then government keeps along with your bill for 2 years plus. Now is when they are now reviewing whether what people are claiming are legit. So you can imagine somebody who has been staying in the system for like 2-3 years, they have not been paid. Is that still a business? That is, those are losses, those are risks. That is somebody who is going down a debt, whatever. So I think government must also, once and for all, deal with this issue of departments and agencies saying that they have not paid, because that is just debt and they're not saying it's debt. It's not this one we are talking about.
We'll start figuring it out whether it's local debt or domestic debt or not. I have an opportunity just for 2 people in our audience. So if you could raise your hand before I change my mind. Some who have not participated before, sadly. What are some of the solutions we can do for the small businesses? Because that is one of the things that we are looking for to help the normal mwananchi. 3 seconds or 5 seconds of a solution that we can help the small businesses for 2025.
My name is Owol Christopher. And the finance bill is keen on, they are keen on increasing how they are gonna take back their taxes. So maybe they could dwell more on tax holidays for startups, or maybe procurement quotas. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Another one last one before we wind up. Someone who has not spoken yet. Okay, clearly.
Can I speak?
Yes, you can.
I think one last point that I forgot. The government has increasingly taxed income. We are the customers to these small businesses. So if you do not have income, you're not to be able to purchase from them. So let's literally put more money in the pockets of Kenyans by reducing taxation on income.
The ripple effect of how we are taxing the payee. You have a pressing matter to say, Karani. I think you can send it on SMS. It's okay. Okay, stand up and tell us without a microphone. Be loud enough.
This one is just on education. Education is not a luxury. When government is cutting the budget on education, it's going to affect each and everyone. They are actually decreasing the budget on education while the number of institutions has actually increased. So it doesn't make sense. We're having more learners joining junior secondary school and they're decreasing the budget. Funny enough, they took money from exams. The money for exams they took from capitation. So it means there are learners who are not going to receive capitation. So it's this budget is going to be the funeral ceremony of free education in this country. And Buddy is a head mortician preparing education, the burial for free education in this country. It's a big shame. We've had learners who've actually benefited from free education. Right now, our young people who depend on the school meals cannot access meals. We are a country which is focused on renovating State House when our young people cannot access education. Kindly, let's focus on what is important. The luxuries can come later. You'll not live in State House forever. It's just a few years and you're gone.
Thank you for that. The budget is going to be read later in this week. I don't know if we're going to be reading the obituary of our country or not. We're waiting to see that. But remember, out of 100 shillings, 60 is going to expenditure, 40 meant to take care of you. I don't know how much 40 shillings would even pay for you if you're leaving the CBD. I don't know how far you'd go. Maybe utafika Nyayo, lakini utafika nyumbani. That was the discussion we were having today. Mahesabu Kalikali here at the Social Newsroom. The question was, is the Finance Bill 2025 set to build the Kenyan who was told of a dream of a bottom-up economy? Will he realize it or not? We're yet to see what's going to be coming out at the end of the week with the budget. But of course, we are thankful to you who is at home and who is watching us and give us your opinion. The conversation will continue, so kindly keep sharing in your comments and with everyone else. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Kate Rira. Good night.